All right, the recording is in progress. You may begin.
Good evening. This is September 29th, 2025 at 7 o'clock. I see that we have a quorum of the members of the Police Commissioners Advisory Committee for our monthly meeting. And I'm just going to introduce everyone ourselves. My name is Paul Yee. I'm one of the co-chairs. Ron, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Ron Wilkinson. I'm the other co-chair.
I'm John Hilliard, member of the committee. C. Scott Nanian, I'm a member for Precinct 10 and member of the committee.
And there are non-voting members also present, and from the police department. Chief, would you introduce yourself?
Sure, Jen Pastor, Chief of Police.
And I'm Paul Campbell, Deputy Superintendent with the Police Department and the liaison to the PCAC.
Great, thank you. And I understand that there's been a request by Flock and also the Brookline Police Department to present at our meeting. I'm going to take that item in order, out of order, excuse me. It's number 7 on the agenda, and I'm going to take it at this time.
Pardon me, Paul. Two other non-voting members, staff members, is Susan Harris is on and Ann Braga is on.
I wasn't aware that they were here.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we can have them introduce themselves.
Sure.
Would you like to go first, Susan?
Thank you. Susan Harris here on behalf of Town Council's office.
And Ann?
Ann Braga, HR Director for the town.
Okay, I apologize to both of you. I did not see the profile up on the Zoom. So my apologies. I'm sorry. Okay, so as I was saying, the presentation about the Flock camera is a member of understanding that was presented by Flock to the Brookline Police Department. And I understand that Deputy Superintendent Campbell will speak on that.
Yeah. So let me ask, because I know we were going to go to this out of order. Tej, I see you're in here. Is Kristen here yet? And I know there's a presentation.
Here she is now.
Yes, sorry about that. She's joining right now.
All right.
Give me a minute and I can make her co-host.
Oh,
Remember the
3 minutes late, sorry.
Okay.
All right. Hi, Kristen. So I'll just maybe just a little bit about the Flock system, and Kristen will have a presentation, a slideshow that she can show us, maybe talk a little bit more and answer some questions. But essentially what's happening is Chestnut Hill Realty, which is a private apartment complex in South Brookline, they're in the process of putting up some Flock cameras, which are license plate readers. And we've been asked to sign a memorandum of agreement, which would allow us access to their private camera system. We imagine that where it's license plate readers, that people might have some questions, what it is and what it isn't. And so we figured we would show you the memorandum of understanding, and the Flock people are here. They can tell you a little bit about what the system does, what it doesn't do. And then if people have questions, we can take them at that time. If there are no questions to start, can I maybe turn it over and ask Kristen if you're ready, if you want to talk a little bit about what, or just start the slideshow?
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kristen McLeod. I'm a Senior Public Affairs Manager with Flock. First, thank you so much for your time this evening. Happy to be here to share more information about our license plate readers and, of course, help answer any questions. I am joined online by my colleague, Tej Foley. He is our regional representative. So in case there are any additional questions between he and I, we will certainly work to get those answered for you. With that, I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to give a quick presentation, just like Deputy Superintendent mentioned, that a little bit an overview of Flock, what we are, and what we do and what we don't do. A little bit about the history of Flock. So we were founded back in 2017 after our own CEO and founder was experiencing an uptick of property crime in his own neighborhood. And so he set out to create a company to provide tools to communities. We started off with neighborhoods, HOAs, to give them an efficient, affordable, and ethical tool to help solve crime. We expanded to working with cities and law enforcement, and continue to grow to this day. But it's really about providing a tool to law enforcement and communities to help solve more crime. What we do see is that nationally, law enforcement are really stretched thin as far as resources. They wear many different hats, many different important hats. And we also see that recruitment and retention of officers is a really big challenge. And not only nationally, but also locally. So Chief Pastor shared with us that 10% of Brookline PD officers' positions remain unfilled. So on top of wearing many hats, again, with a shortage of officers, it's tough to do that job for many reasons, but again, strained resources. So what we see is many communities are turning to technology, certainly not to replace officers. We need our wonderful officers and first responders, but again, to provide them a tool to help them solve crime. So enter what we call collaborative policing technology. So this really our technology acts as a force multiplier to enable agencies of various sizes, again, to help them solve crime more quickly without increasing staffing. So focusing on, as mentioned, we work with neighborhood organizations, HOAs, and they are able to purchase and install our license plate readers. This is an image of one of our, a couple of our license plate readers that are, they are cameras that are installed in fixed locations, and they are typically mounted on either existing infrastructure like this utility pole here, or what we call a flock pole. And they are solar powered, they have a battery backup, but they capture images of passing vehicles, still images in a point in time image of vehicles passing through that camera's view. And partnering with law enforcement, so when our neighborhood and HOA organizations partner with our local police departments, as mentioned, Flock requires an MOU understanding. And really what this partnership, this public-private partnership with the neighborhood organizations and law enforcement does, it enables those organizations to share evidence captured from their camera networks that they have had put in place so that law enforcement can access and help solve crime. For our law enforcement users, they have the ability to be alerted to wanted vehicles that are on what we call hot lists. So the National Crime Information Center, we have an integration with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We have a wonderful partnership with that organization. And so if any suspect vehicle is in one of these databases, our law enforcement users will be alerted in real time to that suspect vehicle when it passes by that camera in the community. Now, the private organization, the neighborhood organization does not get those alerts. Those are law enforcement sensitive. But again, our law enforcement partners and users would. These alerts help law enforcement take swift action to help solve crime faster. And it sends a message to neighborhoods that that community is vigilant. Very important is that Flock was really built with privacy in mind. All of the data is owned by the customer. So in this instance, the camera network that the private entity would install, all of the images that are captured are owned by that entity. Flock does not sell that information to any third parties. Private Flock customers never have access to government data or hot lists, just as I mentioned. Flock has a default data retention of 30 days, and this really supports that balance of privacy, but providing investigative value. So an image is given a time to live stamp, if you will. At the 30-day mark, it is hard deleted and unrecoverable unless it has been downloaded and retained as evidence in an investigation. Only the customer decides who they will share the data with at all. So this private entity that is interested in implementing the camera network, they have the option to share with Brookline PD. Because it is their camera network and the data that they are collecting, they can revoke access at any time, but it just means that the customer is in full control of whether or not they're going to share that information. And we find many neighborhoods and communities that have installed these camera networks, of course, see the huge benefit of sharing with their local police department. So again, just a wonderful public-private partnership. Flock does not have facial recognition. The system can only be searched for vehicle characteristics. The cameras are focused on capturing the rear of vehicles, and there is no way to search or filter for a person in the system. And again, we don't utilize facial recognition software. There are no names, addresses, or personal information associated with any individual within the Flock LPR system. With any query of the system, a search reason is required and a unique user ID is saved indefinitely. And that provides our customers, the administrators of those systems, the ability to audit and ensure that the system is being used in accordance with policy and, of course, any laws that are in place. And although there is no personal identifiable information within the Flock system, we take data security very seriously, and all of the data is stored with end-to-end encryption. And we also have these certifications here. And then shifting over just to wrap things up, Flock works with over 70 law enforcement agencies within the state of Massachusetts, including those listed here. And a couple examples I wanted to share about how the Flock LPR information has aided local law enforcement in solving crime. Back in March of 2025, a woman in Avon was found deceased in her home. There were visible injuries and signs of a struggle. Investigators were able to identify a suspect in a vehicle and issued a be on the lookout to neighboring agencies. Braintree PD, they have the Flock system in place, and they quickly created an alert based on that suspect information, which led to a real-time alert when the suspect vehicles entered South Shore Plaza. Officers responded to the area, located the vehicle, arrested the suspect, and were actually able to recover evidence related to the homicide in the vehicle. And the suspect was taken into custody about only 4 hours after police were first called to the home. And that individual is now facing murder charges. This is an example from Los Angeles, California. Their Baldwin Vista Hillside neighborhood, they implemented a camera network of LPRs. They were experiencing property theft, car break-ins. They really had they were missing a lot of actionable evidence to intercept these individuals. And so the homeowners association implemented LPR cameras at their entrance, and they provided access to their local law enforcement. So they were able to help improve situational awareness. They had more crimes solved, including a high-profile burglary. Residents reported just a sense of feeling more safe. And it definitely assisted with crime deterrence and reduction. And then lastly, just wanted to highlight, in addition to a variety of different crimes that LPR can help local law enforcement solve, we've also seen an incredible use for assisting first responders and law enforcement with locating missing vulnerable persons, including silver alerts. And as mentioned before, we have a wonderful partnership with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So those Amber Alerts, we've seen incredible impacts there in helping them really piece together a puzzle and help find a needle in a haystack. This is an example from O'Fallon, Missouri, where an elderly woman left her residence to attend a doctor's appointment that morning. Later that afternoon, she had not returned home and her daughter reported her missing. And 15 minutes later, after the law enforcement agency had entered the woman's vehicle information into the system, that law enforcement agency received an alert that the woman's vehicle had passed by a camera in the community. So they were able to efficiently direct resources to that location, found her, and returned her safely home. And this is an example of an Amber Alert. This is the first Amber Alert that the Flock cameras helped law enforcement solve. Within 5.5 hours of an Amber Alert being issued, this 1-year-old baby was reunited with mom. So I mentioned that helping direct resources to suspect vehicles, based on witness information has just been incredibly impactful. So I threw a lot of information at you. That concludes my presentation. I can pass it to Chief or Paul if you wanted to add anything additional. Otherwise, I'm happy to help answer any questions that you may have.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Kristen. The only thing I would add is that I know we have a packed agenda for tonight, and I just want to make sure, this conversation could spiral and we could have much longer, much lengthier conversations about cameras and LPRs and technology. But I just want to remind us that this is about a camera system, an LPR system that a private business intends to purchase, may have already purchased. And so as much as we can keep this conversation strictly to the MOU, I think that would really be beneficial. And I would hate, to get so lost in the bigger conversation, and I understand there is one to be had. But this is in front of you tonight after a conversation I had with the town administrator when I asked about being able to sign off on this MOU. I think that from a law enforcement perspective, it's a no-brainer. And I am really grateful to Chestnut Hill Realty for being proactive and good partners in public safety. And it was the town administrator's recommendation that we presented to the PCAC, which I think makes perfect sense. Hear your concerns, have the Flock team here to answer any technical questions that I certainly wouldn't be suited to answer. But that's in a nutshell how we got here tonight. So thank you to Kristen and to Tej and to all of you for hearing it out.
Kristen, if I could just add one other thing am I correct? I don't know if I have this right. Chestnut Hill Realty is going to be posting signs alerting people that there are license plate reader cameras on the property. Is that right? Or
I can double check with their representative. We do have the option of having signage for our customers, and I'm not aware of the specific on that, but I can certainly check with them and follow up.
okay. For some reason, I thought I'd heard that. I may have just heard that it's an option. Ultimately, it's their call. I just didn't know if that was a decided issue already.
Sure.
I guess at this point we can. Does anyone have questions? Now would be the time.
Go ahead. Well, we'll trade off. My first question is just, where does Chestnut Hill Realty plan on installing the cameras, and what roads do they have visibility on? Because Chestnut Hill Realty owns a large number of properties along Route 9, which is a major thoroughfare through our town. If there are cameras with a view of Route 9 that basically covers anyone who transits through Brookline for any purpose, right?
That's on us. We should have been more specific. My understanding is this is strictly about the Hancock Village properties.
Okay. And is my understanding correct that if this MOU is not signed, that the only people who can use these cameras are Chestnut Hill Realty and no other nationwide or local police departments can use that data? This is a somewhat rhetorical question because I believe I know the answer, but if we do sign this MOU, are there any requirements that the location of these cameras be posted, or that limit who nationwide can search the data from these cameras? I don't think there is. If someone knows of a Brookline regulation that would regulate it, let me know. Those are somewhat leading questions. I'm going to throw it over to you. Just
Yeah, I had similar questions. Like I think just a sensitivity toward more cameras, and then like having some assurance that I understand that we're just talking about an MOU that would give our department potentially access to this, but I was curious if it extends beyond Brookline. So it's like if we sign this, it gives us access to our department has access to kind of all the flock data nationwide, and then yeah, like as we put up more camera, not we, but as more cameras are put up, those are all fed into this big database, which is then searchable by any municipality or law enforcement. I just wanted to make sure I understood like those dynamics of how the data is shared and exchanged.
Those are great questions. And so first and foremost, each of the customers own their data and have full control on who they share their data with. So if this individual private customer, if they want to share with a local law enforcement agency, that law enforcement agency would have to have an MOU in place unless that other local law enforcement agency is an existing flock customer. And as far as I'm getting an answer right now, I don't believe that the private entities are able to share nationwide, but I want to confirm that for you. I want to make sure I answered all of the questions. Did I capture all of?
Yeah, I'd like you to check that last answer, because that is not what reporting I believe has said.
Could you repeat that?
Could you verify what you just said? I believe that there have been a number of cases reported where local law enforcement agencies have done nationwide searches with flock data.
Yes, so that is for our law enforcement customers. They have the ability to opt into a national lookup tool. What that is any law enforcement agency across the United States that opts into this tool. It's a reciprocal sharing. We leave that decision up to each local law enforcement agency, whether or not they opt into the national lookup. National lookup is used primarily for crimes that span state lines, human trafficking, drug trafficking cases, that sort of thing. But that is all a local decision that local law enforcement agencies would have to opt into. Again, depending on their local laws, there are some states that prohibit that. And of course, community values. So it's really up to the law enforcement agency. But as far as our private customers, so in this instance in particular, the private entity, I just want to get you the correct information. I don't believe they have the ability to provide their information nationwide, but I want to be 100% sure for you, so I'm going to get that answer.
You know,
Just to be,
could I just ask Chief Pastor if you have opted into that or plan to opt into the nationwide reciprocal share?
I would have to look at that. At this point, we were keeping the conversation restricted to Brookline PD and Chestnut Hill Realty, specifically Hancock Village. There is a trial period that would allow us, I believe, access to the local agencies that have opted into Flock for about 30 days.
And is that reciprocal? So for 30 days, those other agencies can also access our data?
But just to be clear, it's not our data.
It's not right. Correct.
Chestnut Hill
data
Realty is a
from-
private company that owns private, or that's contracting for private cameras.
But they cannot, those other agencies can't access Brookline data by private entities within Brookline unless the Brookline PD signs a memorandum of understanding, right?
No,
I thought
I
it was-
think, yeah, I think the
Look-
way that I'm reading it is that Chestnut Hill Realty could engage with any other police department and they would access the data that way.
Correct.
Is
Yeah,
there a
it
private-
would be, yeah, Brookline PD would not be able to share the private entities' data.
So what is the reason for us to do this then?
To have this information in real time to enhance the abilities of our officers on the street. If we have real-time notification that a plate that's on a wanted list for an Amber Alert, for a Silver Alert, that they're in Hancock Village, it would allow us to go up, in a matter of minutes and engage with the car.
But it sounds like you could just call Cambridge and ask them to do that for you, right?
We would have no-
List of localities that have signed this MOU?
I think there's some confusion here. I just want to make sure it's clarified for my sake. There's a notion of a law enforcement customer, and there's a notion of a private customer. Our department signing a MOU with a private customer doesn't make our department customers of Flock. It's still Chestnut Realty that's a customer of Flock. And it's Chestnut Hill Realty that has an agreement with the Brookline Police Department. But the Brookline Police Department, as of now, is not a customer of Flock, and so would not automatically have access to all of the options like the nationwide stuff that real law enforcement customers of Flock would have. Brookline PD would not be customers of Flock. Do I understand that correctly?
I think that is correct. Kristen
Yeah.
looks like she's nodding, yes.
You're nodding, yeah. What I think I find interesting, I mean, it's just as was mentioned, Chestnut Hill Realty is actually a very large real estate presence in this general area, and I can easily imagine a situation in which Hancock Village is the first contract they have with Flock, and if it's really successful, they're expanding starting to contracting with Flock to put cameras in other properties owned by Chestnut Hill Realty. And eventually that could get to be pretty extensive because Chestnut Hill Realty is really expensive. That's not necessarily bad, but it's just something that I can imagine developing over time. And it's totally independent of this memo of understanding.
Can I ask?
And I can also, yeah.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Just wait. Are you finished first, Ron?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, Scott.
Just as a follow-up, Chestnut Hill Realty is very large. They're in Boston, Brighton, Brookline, Canton, Cambridge, Chestnut Hill, Framingham, Newton, Norwood, Plainville, Roxbury, and Rhode Island. Can I ask, have they signed MOUs with other police departments? And if why and why us, if so or if not? I guess the first question is, do we know if they've signed MOUs already with other local police departments?
Or have you been contracted with Flock before?
I can look into that and see if there is an existing MOU with neighboring agencies, but I'm not certain.
Yeah, my understanding is that of the agencies that were listed, but Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, Cambridge, for example, the city of Cambridge is a Flock customer. So it's a separate thing that we're talking about there altogether.
Correct.
So for them, it's not an issue. It's the city that owns and manages the systems and the data.
Yeah, can I ask Kristen or Tej, if Brookline was a customer, an independent customer of Flock, is it accurate to say that we then wouldn't need the MOU, or would we still need an MOU?
No, if you were a Flock customer, right, Tej, and I don't want to speak out of turn. If you were a Flock customer, the MOU is not needed. if you wanted to access a private entity's camera network, they would still have to grant permission.
Yes, to share any camera feeds in Flock, you need to give permission to the party requesting the permission. So they can deny whoever they want, basically. But even if you were a customer of Flock, you would have to reach out to the private business and get permission and receive permission for those cameras.
And just to add on, I did receive confirmation, any private entity, so for the example we're talking about now, the business that is interested in partnering with Brookline PD with the MOU, they do not have the ability to share on a national lookup level or a statewide lookup level. Those private customers, that national lookup is only for law enforcement customers.
Yeah, this is a little confusing because you talk about this as a reciprocal relationship. If they share with Brookline PD then has the option to share with anyone, right? With the nationwide. Okay, so
Not that
Chestnut Hill Realty does Chestnut Hill Realty have the ability to say, these are my cameras, I don't want them used by anyone except Brookline PD?
yes, they do have that ability.
And if Brookline PD opts into the nationwide network, do they have the ability to say, I don't want someone out of state from accessing the cameras which are in Brookline?
Yes, however, because Brookline PD is not a customer, they would not have national lookup. They would not be able to share Chestnut Hill, that private entity's data nationally. So each customer has their own camera networks, if a private entity has their camera networks, they are in control of all of the data collected from those cameras. With the MOU situation, if Brookline PD were to enter into an MOU and the private entity grants access to Brookline PD to that information collected by the private entity's camera network, Brookline PD would be able to be alerted to any wanted vehicles that pass by those cameras. And then the second feature is that Brookline PD would have access to, say, a crime occurs and potential evidence could be available on those cameras. They would have historical information going back 30 days. So those are the benefits for Brookline PD to have the MOU partnership in place. Now, a separate, if a law enforcement customer, which Brookline currently is not, if they are a Flock customer, that individual law enforcement would be able to, with their own camera network, with cameras up in the city, they would be able to opt into national lookup if they choose to. So Brookline would not have the ability, because they do not have their own camera network, to share information on a national reciprocal level.
If I could just, it seems like we're using the word share, and I think in some situations, maybe the word we should be using is search. Brookline would have the ability to search certain Flock cameras, but not share any data. Because we don't, if I'm correct, we don't have any data. We don't have anything to share because the data is private.
Yes.
I have that right?
Yep.
And I think search is probably the right word. What I'm trying to get at is understanding better when non-local agencies can search Brookline data, and whether that requires our permission, either here granted by the MOU or otherwise, or not.
So I think, sorry, go ahead. I think the answer is no, because Chestnut Hill Realty would have to be under an MOU with the agency who's searching for that data, because they're a private.
Yep, that private entity would have to grant that police department permission, and that control lies with that private entity, that private customer.
So just if I can
share grant permission to Brookline, and Brookline opts into nationwide sharing, though, can Chestnut Hill still opt out of that?
Brookline with the MOU that we're discussing would not have any data to share nationally. They would not.
Scott, were you asking if Brookline were to get its own cameras, or I didn't?
No, I'm asking specifically what the criteria are for non-local police, law enforcement to search cameras which are located in Brookline, and whether that requires any action from us.
All right, let me ask
Yeah.
Kristen, let me pose this question to you. If this MOU went away, if there was no MOU, is there anything that would prevent Chestnut Hill Realty from sharing their camera footage with anybody that they wanted?
It's completely up to them, and I believe that they would only be able to share regionally, and I'll get the answer. Like, again, they could not share their information nationally.
So if I'm reading the room right, and I'm not sure I am, there may be some concern if this MOU goes through. Are we granting an outside agency some additional authority to share that maybe we don't have a full understanding of? And I think what I'm hearing from you is they can share with whoever they want regardless of the MOU. Do I have that right?
Correct. Kristen, can I just clarify something? It sounds like there are a couple of different permissions being talked about. One thing is the MOU, which would be between potentially the town of Brookline, Brookline PD, and Flock for BPD to access data. And then the other thing would be permission that Chestnut Hill Realty grants to whoever they want to share their data with. Like, the MOU is not between BPD and Chestnut Hill Realty, right? It's between BPD and Flock.
Say the last part again.
So the MOU is between BPD and Flock.
Yes.
And separately to that, Chestnut Hill Realty or the private entity can elect to share their data with sort of whoever they wish, maybe BPD, within the parameters set by Flock. It sounds like not nationally, for example, probably, but that's up to them for the most part.
Correct. And so I wanted to get some clarifying information on, I believe they have a certain radius of like regionally that the private entity could share with law enforcement agencies within a certain radius. So it's not like the private entity would be able to share their camera network information statewide, and they cannot share nationwide.
But see, it seems like you're saying two different things, and I'm trying to understand. We've already talked about the BPD being able to share data nationwide if we opt into this program, which would presumably still be sourced from the cameras, or no, we can only share nationwide cameras that the town owns itself, and Chestnut Hill Realty cannot share past the state?
Correct.
But again, Scott, you're using the word share, and I wonder if search is the right word.
Yeah, sorry. I
BPD is not sharing anything.
With, you know, if Chestnut Hill Realty really wants folks in Illinois to be able to search their cameras, that's up to them. I'm just trying to figure out if we have some say in that, and if we're facilitating it by this MOU, right? That's sort of my bottom line. And I will say, just as context, I'm mostly concerned with guardrails here. So it seems like some of these things we're told won't happen unless the BPD becomes a Flock customer, and so I sort of want to know what the guardrails are. What would have to happen before, you know, is that going to happen, you know, tomorrow just because we feel like it, or what kind of approval would be needed to happen? And the other thing is, we've been told that they sort of kind of want to post signs. I don't think we have any regulations or guardrails there to sort of say that they must, or even that they should. And so those are my concerns from town government's perspective, or the guardrails that we have. If we, is this we signed this MOU once and it never comes before any of our town officials ever again for discussion? Or is this, what are the guardrails that make sure that if this expands and that we have some feedback on exactly what's happening?
I'll just say, Scott, I hope that you feel good about the fact that, for one, I didn't just sign it and, we're done.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, I brought it to the town administrator who asked me to bring it in front of all of you, so I think you should feel good knowing at least how we
Yeah,
got here,
as-
and certainly anything beyond this, seemingly simple MOU. I think all of us who have been around for more than a minute know that this is a much bigger conversation that's in need of much more public input. We've been down this road before, a few times, and always have respected the public engagement, the dialogue, the open meetings.
As I frequently said, my concern is usually auditing, right? We have best intentions of everyone in this room. I do appreciate that we're discussing it now. I am always just, from my background in software engineering, if something's not tested, it tends to sort of drift. And so that's where I'm going with the guardrails. What exactly are we agreeing to now? And then if that changes in the future, how would we know? How would we sort of make sure that the future version of this committee has another chance to discuss it if this ends up broadening in the future?
So
Well,
tonight is, go ahead.
I was just gonna throw out, Kristen or Tage, let's say a different apartment complex decides, hey, we're gonna get 20 flock cameras and we want the police involved also. I'm assuming that is a new MOA that would have to be signed, that the only cameras covered by this are Chestnut Realty cameras.
I believe so, yes.
So my question is, you said there's a 30-day default for retention of data, right? For the recording of license plates. So can Chestnut Hill Realty opt for a longer retention period, like 2 years?
For our private customers cannot, it is just the 30-day retention. Government entities, to extend their data retention, that requires a governing body's approval, such as a city council or town council. But private entities would not be able to extend data retention.
So say assuming we signed this MOU, right? And everything's running and the cameras are up with the poles within Chestnut Realty in Hancock Village in Brookline. And exactly what are the police department looking at? Are they downloading some software and getting images, or is there a special TV camera? What happens?
Great question. Yes, so it's a web-based interface and we have an app. And if say the MOU is signed and Brookline PD is on board, their approved users would be able to log on and they can see, they would have access to search 30 days of historical information for a suspect vehicle. Again, I want to highlight that a search reason is required. That is associated with that unique user ID. So any query of the system for historical information is all logged and auditable. So they would be able to see, pull up by date, time, location. They would see images of the rear of vehicles. And then if they were to receive an alert of a wanted vehicle that is passed by a camera in the community, they would also get that information. They could pull up the image of the vehicle that had passed the camera. They would get the date, time, location information.
And Kristen, is there any live viewing?
We have on LPR cameras, there is a live view capability, but that has to be that's an opt-in.
So within that, the web app that you described, right? So is the police department downloading data? And will we have a retention of that data at the police department?
Typically, when the only time they would download is if it's going to be utilized as evidence in a criminal investigation, and then that evidence, we can let Chief Pastor Paul talk about kind of what those retention guidelines are. But that those images that are downloaded would then be held in Brookline PD's evidence repository system.
So with on the 30-day retention, right? So who wipes the 30 days?
Great question. So we host our data that is all stored on the Amazon Web Services cloud, and it's set with a retention. So it's automatic, hard deleted at that image's 30-day mark.
Excuse me. I'm a little late to the party here, but what's the fee? What's the money attached to all of this?
So with Brookline's involvement, there would be no fee because it would be the private entity who is funding their own cameras and then sharing that with Brookline.
Any other questions or comments?
Just like quick question.
Sure.
If we don't sign the MOU, does the value to Chestnut Hill Realty drops, I guess, because the data is only used by them, like their own private use, I guess, unless they sign MOUs with other law enforcement. Is that right?
So correct, they could share with other law enforcement agencies, and they could still provide information after the fact. Brookline PD would miss out on being alerted to suspect vehicles passing by those community cameras. So that real-time information and impact would not be there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So are you saying the MOU provides Brookline Police Department real-time access? I thought it was just historical.
So because Brookline is a law enforcement agency, our law enforcement users, we have integrated on the back end as with National Crime Information Center and National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So the private entity, they would not be alerted if a suspect vehicle that had been entered into one of those hot lists had passed by a camera in their community. But if Brookline PD has the MOU in place, because they are a law enforcement agency, they can have law enforcement sensitive information. They would be alerted in real time to a suspect vehicle passing by a camera in the community. So for example, if a child there's an Amber Alert involving a child and that suspect vehicle were to pass by a camera in that private entity's community, they would not be alerted to that, but Brookline PD would receive that alert within about 20 seconds of that vehicle passing by the camera.
But it would only apply to your customer, right? It would not apply to some other customer that has perhaps not within that area a flock camera, right?
If there is another local law enforcement agency and Brookline wanted access to their information, Brookline could request access to their camera network. Is that what you were asking in that?
So say there's an ABC Realty company, right? That has a flock, right? But it's not a Hancock Village. Okay, and then this hot list car those driving by one of those cameras, right? Are you saying that the Brookline Police Department will be alerted even though we just have a MOU for Hancock Village?
Nope, ABC Realty would have to give permission to Brookline.
Even a hot list?
Correct.
Any more?
Sounds like it would be in the interest of Chestnut Hill Realty to sign MOUs with as many local police departments as possible. You know, Brookline is one, but I would imagine they would want Boston, they would want Cambridge, and some of the others could get kind of interesting. But anyway, but that's, you know, that's their particular option.
Yeah, I'd like to make a sort of closing statement if we at the end of it.
Okay, I think this is the end.
Yeah. That's why I mean, so I'll just say I am very concerned with these cameras. Both the ACLU and the Electronic Frontier Foundation have come out against them, and they are smart people, much more aware of all the issues than perhaps I am. And the risk of abuse is real. You know, there was a I'm sure you guys from Flock know this. There's a public records request of Danville, Illinois, and under their public records law, the searches of their cameras were in the public record. As part of the Flock search, as Flock told us, you have to provide a reason that you're providing the lookup. The reason for searches of Danville's cameras from across the U.S. and the records included searches from non-local law enforcement. The keywords were immigration, ICE plus ERO, which is the enforcement and removal operation, ICE warrant, illegal immigration, and keywords such as that. So I think there is a real concern. I think what I've heard from Flock is that this doesn't happen unless Brookline itself has Flock cameras. And if that is the case, I am somewhat mollified with this, but I would like to, you know, put some guardrails in place to make sure this isn't a slippery slope. And it's not just immigration. There's a case in Texas, which I'm sure Flock also knows about, where a woman who was self-managing an abortion, her family reported her as a missing person, and there were Flock cameras searched all nationwide for this woman on the pretense that she was a missing person. Now, I'm very concerned that someone driving by Chestnut Realty properties, of which there are a lot of them right now, we're told it's only in Hancock Village, but you know, they have an office right there on Route 9. And you could be driving down Route 9 through Brookline and get tagged, not see the sign as you're driving past on Route 9 that says, you know, there's a Flock camera, and that we could be facilitating abuses, which I don't think we would countenance in our town. So I'm concerned about it. I'd like to make sure there are guardrails in place. I've been, I've heard a lot of, I think that's the case, and I would like to see some of those answers in writing to make sure that the understanding that we have in this meeting is correct. But that's sort of my position and my concerns with the MOA.
Can I just throw something out there? Scott, you probably know this better than I do, but it's my understanding that the ACLU does not oppose these, that as long as they're tightly controlled, that the ACLU does in certain circumstances, they recognize the value of license plate readers and hot lists that are regularly updated and well-maintained. Is that no longer their position?
I think their position is on mass surveillance, which this is as a nationwide and private, largely unregulated network, right? So,
but not on license plate readers.
If we've got license plate readers in Massachusetts, they would be governed by Massachusetts law. These license plate readers are not governing. The reason we can have this discussion is because Massachusetts hasn't yet published any law with regard to license plate readers. I think there was a law filed recently that would regulate these. I don't know what its progress to the State House is, but you know, this is sort of the Wild West. you
But
know,
your statement was that the ACLU is categorically against these.
yeah, I mean, there's an
I don't
article here,
believe that to be the
ACLU, from
case.
August 18th, which was like Flock's aggressive expansions go far beyond simple driver surveillance. So
I'm just asking if that's an accurate statement, that the ACLU is categorically opposed to these in all circumstances. That was not their position at one time. It may be their position now. I just don't know if that's the case.
I think your answer there is going to hinge on what an official position from the ACLU looks like. They have certainly published articles recently. I mean, this was August last month. The other one here that I have is from July on their website, warning of the dangers of it. I think when we had this similar conversation about face surveillance, they had a very nuanced position that's probably not easily boiled down to simple pro and con, but I think.
Well, and I understand that, but it did appear as though your statement was that the ACLU opposes these.
I should say specifically the ACLU has warned of the dangers of these. That would probably be something I could say based.
I recognize that.
Yeah, you're right to call me on the wording though.
But let me just also just the question of just surveillance. It's my understanding that, you know, these being privately owned cameras, these go in if the customer wants them, regardless of the MOU. The parade of horribles, and I don't doubt that there is potential for abuse, and that in other parts of the country that it has happened. But some of those things exist with or without this MOU. They're almost extrinsic to what we're talking about tonight. Is that correct? I mean, the question of whether or not there's a sign posted and somebody could go by one of these cameras and not know that there was a sign posted and then get picked up. I mean, that's the case whether the MOU is signed or not. Is that correct? Is there anything that would prevent the private entity from purchasing these cameras and joining the Flock system? I guess that's for Tej or Kristen.
So the way I'm looking at it is we're looking at this, just as the chief says, you know, for a limited purpose of an MOU. We're not discussing, you know, license plate readers in general and whether or not the Brookline Police Department should be entering that world. It's limited to a private entity putting in their own cameras, and they chose Flock. It could be some other company other than Flock. It's akin to if someone owned a single residence and they have a big backyard and they want to put in surveillance camera, and they put in the surveillance camera, they contact Flock. Flock says, okay, and they want to come in, and it may not surveil a lot of license plates, but some license plate coming in and out of, you know, this big estate. That's the way I'm looking at it.
I think that was my point. I agree.
And I would also like to offer, you know, Flock does not completely oppose what the ACLU is suggesting. We absolutely are in favor of guardrails in place. And we work with agencies to develop robust LPR use policies. And we wholeheartedly believe that community values do not have to be sacrificed for public safety and providing these tools. We actually recently implemented a new search filter. So if a law enforcement agency is implementing their LPR camera network, they are able to, if they provide in writing or if there is state law that exists, the ability to implement this search filter. And if if a user of the Flock system with which they've shared access to their camera network is searching, and the search reason has something to do with either immigration enforcement or reproductive rights, the system blocks that search and does not let that search be completed. So we are continually listening to our community and the concerns and implementing training and measures and features that support compliance. Because again, we wholeheartedly believe that the two can exist together.
I don't think we have anything else to add to this or ask.
I mean, yeah, I guess I'd just like to reassure Chief Faster and Deputy Superintendent Campbell that I'm, mostly what I'm looking for from our police department is the way we recognizing that this is a somewhat dangerous technology that may have, good uses as well as bad. What are the guardrails we're going to put in place in our community to ensure that, not you, Chief Pastor, but the chief after you, who's a real, terrible person, is also going to, if they do opt into flock sharing, is going to make sure they have those filters in place or whatever the case is. Like, what are the guardrails we can put in place to make sure that our usage stays in the right side of the line?
More than fair and appreciated, and we're on the same page.
Okay. So, thank you very much, Kristen and Tej, for your presentation, and also the chief and Deputy Superintendent Campbell. Was there a vote required or no vote required?
Vote would be very much appreciated.
Okay.
No.
I mean, it's not a binding vote, right? The select board or the actual police commissioners, we're just advising them.
That's
Sorry.
exactly.
Yeah. So I'll entertain a motion for a vote.
Just for clarity, what is the motion?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm asking. Yes.
Was that question to me? Sorry.
I'm
No.
to anyone. What is the,
Yeah.
what are you voting on exactly?
Yeah, it's like, do we vote to permit the Brookline Police Department to sign a memo of understanding with Flock to receive data from Chestnut Hill Realty? That's very specific.
Probably recommend might be.
That's what I was gonna
Recommend.
say.
Yeah, if I were to wordsmithing on the fly is I would like to propose a narrow motion to support this MOU with Chestnut Hill Realty while expressing concern about BBD becoming a client of Flock, right?
Let's not go further than that. Let's just.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm giving you wording that would get my yes vote. Maybe you don't need my yes vote, but I'm saying, right?
No.
I could just vote against it, but if I vote against it, it's not necessarily because of Chestnut Hill Realty, but
Why
about.
don't we take
the
two
future.
votes?
Right.
Sorry,
Okay.
can I just want to jump in to clarify as you're working out your motion language. Again, just to clarify that this MOU is with Flock, not with Chestnut Hill Realty. I don't believe the MOU, or at least the draft that I've quickly looked at, references Chestnut Hill Realty. It just appears to be an MOU with Flock.
Yeah, we were told a couple times here that if a different realty company wanted to share their data with BPD, it would require another MOU. Is that the case or not?
Let me check with our legal team and get you an answer 100% on that.
So it sounds like we may not have enough information to vote at this point.
So Susan, I will comment, I didn't look closely enough to see if it mentions Chestnut Hill Realty, but it does reference customer. And in this case, there is a specific customer. It was my understanding that we would need a separate MOU and that this is not a blanket MOU. I guess that now I have to read it closely for that specific. But customer in this case is Chestnut Hill Realty. Otherwise, I guess theoretically, would any customer be bound by this MOU, a subsequent customer, even theoretically without their knowledge?
So Paul, Deputy Superintendent, I'm just looking at the first page of the MOU, and Brookline PD is the customer. So we're the customer. For access to flock data.
Yep, I see that now.
I don't believe there's any mention of Chestnut Hill Realty here. And that it's limited to only Chestnut Hill Realty. That's why I asked this. I think there were all these questions that came up with the MOU. It's not finite and to say this is because for Flock, the customer is also Chestnut Hill Realty.
Well, then maybe I could suggest a vote where, the approval of the signing of an MOU subject to, clarification that it only references Chestnut Realty at this time. Something like that, which allows us to get through to the next stage, but also allows us time. Otherwise, these things can go on for a long time.
Deputy Campbell, can I step in for 1 second? So what this MOU allows is it allows the Brookline PD to access flock data. Now, what data that is up to the Brookline PD, meaning if you sign an MOU, it does not give you blanket access to flock. You have to go in individually and request access from other flock customers for those cameras. So for example, if there's a private residence that Brookline PD or a private company that Brookline PD wants access to the cameras, they have to request sharing from that agency, and then they have to accept that sharing. If Brookline did not want to get anything else from the MOU, just the specific private business we're talking about, they can just request sharing for that specific entity and nobody else. So essentially what it means is the MOU allows you to access flock data. Whose data and who you get permission from depends on who you request and if they give permission. Does that kind of clarify things a little bit?
Now, it makes it even more easy. What you're saying is, if we sign this MOU, PD, Brookline PD signs it, right? We just have the MOU with Hancock Village. What you're telling me is, if they know that ABCD Realty has a flock, they can ask ABC Realty without an MOU and share information with PD. That's what you're saying to me, because they already have access to an MOU with Chestnut Hill Realty.
Yeah, wait, but it isn't an MOU with Chestnut Hill Realty. My understanding is it's an MOU between, it would be an MOU between Brookline BT and Flock, and all the MOU says is we are allowed to ask other Flock customers for their data, and those customers can say yay or nay. All the MOU seems to do is give us permission to ask. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can I suggest a motion, perhaps? So the motion would be move to recommend signing the memorandum of understanding with Flock Services concurrent with the development of a policy for BPD use of these services. Right? Because I think what I'm hearing is, we sort of approve doing this for Chestnut Hill Realty, but we'd like, I'd like, I'm not, if our police department decided that they wanted to gather data from clients in California or whatnot, I feel like we would want a little bit of oversight of that. And so I mean, without knowing exactly what that policy is, I think it seems like the MOU is the first step. I think we still maybe are missing a policy for how the BPD uses these services. I think we're in agreement about this first step with Chestnut Hill Realty, but it seems like we're opening that door. So again, just to be concrete about it, try to move on. The motion is to recommend signing the memorandum of agreement with Flock Services concurrent with the development of a policy for BPD Brookline Police Department use of these services.
Yeah, I'm happy with that wording.
So are you saying we have to have the policy in place before the MOU is signed?
I was trying to finesse that concurrent with at the same time. As long as we're developing it, I think
We need to see a policy being developed.
right. And But don't like that might just come back to us too. So I try to-
We're talking about
That's
30
okay.
days with this. Just a 30-day period and then reeval.
My understanding is that, and again, Flock, correct me if I'm wrong, that the BPD has a sort of 30-day unlimited license to all of Flock's stuff, and that past that point, it's more limited.
So no, the 30-day applies is our data retention. So any of the images captured by the cameras are held for 30 days. If they are not downloaded and retained as evidence in a criminal investigation, those are hard deleted and unrecoverable. So that 30-day just pertains.
And this mistake, it's 90 days access to the essentials tier, which is the real-time hot list alerts and everything else.
Correct. Yes, that is correct. We give you temporary 90 days access to the MOU to be able to request sharing from other agencies. That is correct. And after the 90 days, we remove the essentials tier and go to our community tier, which would allow you to continue to view the cameras in your community that private agencies give you permission. For example, if this residence wanted to continue to provide Brookline PD past that 90 days, Brookline PD would be able to do so because it's in their jurisdiction.
In particular, the essentials tier includes access to the nationwide network of license plate readers. The community tier after 90 days does not. I guess I've made the motion.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion? So, move the question?
Somebody made the motion, then somebody would need to second, and then there would need to be a vote.
Yeah, I second.
I don't really dumb question.
Please,
Yeah.
please
That was
second
Johnny.
out loud, so it's
Johnny Ellen.
very clear in the recording.
Okay, Johnny Hillett, second.
Yeah.
Okay,
Scott Mannion made a motion, John seconded it.
okay, great.
Second.
Okay, Christine, what's your vote?
Yes, to go the 90-day evaluation revow with that.
No, that wasn't in the,
It's
That's
not
not
a
the
motion,
motion.
I'm saying it's-
the motion is just one, the PCAC supports the Brookline Police Department. Signing an MOU with Flock for Chestnut Hill Realty at Hancock Village.
No, that was, sorry. I just, Susan, maybe I'll have Susan read it because just make sure that what's recorded in the minutes is the same thing that we're voting on.
You might be trying to ask Sarah, but I wrote it down too, Scott, and I'll jump in. I have that you were moving to recommend signing the MOU with Flock Services concurrent with the development of a policy for BPD use of these services.
Yes, that's the motion.
Does that work?
It's limited to Chestnut Hill Realty at Hancock Village, right?
Yeah, but it's not, that's not even mentioned.
By the policy, right, so I
We're
mean,
not gonna have the policy in place till afterwards.
this is where we trust. I trust Chief Pastor and Deputy Superintendent Campbell of sort of understanding the context of this, and so I'm not trying to put my foot down and say we can't go forward at all. I think they sort of understand that we're approving the thing right immediately before us, and sort of before it goes further than that, we'll have some kind of policy in place.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I do feel comfortable. We're a little bit behind our neighboring departments, that there are plenty of other policies in place that are in place with departments that are, similar in size, are accredited, follow best practices, model policies from bigger organizations such as IACP. We should be able to draft something in short order so that this won't die in committee.
Okay, good. So now, you heard it, Christine? And how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Yes. And Scott?
I vote yes.
Yes.
Yeah, John Hilliard votes yes.
Ron?
I vote yes.
And Chair Paul votes yes. So it's 4 yes, 0.
It's 5 yes.
Okay.
5 yes, 0.
5 yes, excuse me. So the motion passes. Thank you, Christine, Tej, Chief, for that, sitting through that, and Deputy Superintendent Campbell. Thank you for your patience with us. All right.
Of course,
for having us.
questions and dialogue, and if anything else comes up, we're here. Thank you.
But do respond to our questions. We would really appreciate that. Okay.
Yes, I'll work with Chief to get those all addressed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So we'll go back to our agenda and approval of the minutes. Everybody has the minutes, I hope. Yes, it's the other. Entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
I moved. So moved.
I wasn't here at that meeting, but,
Okay.
Yes, I wrote them, so I can move.
Yeah.
So moved.
Okay. And
Yeah, I'll say.
second. Okay, any discussion? Any edits, amendments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Christine? On approving the minutes of July 21st, 2025.
yeah, I approve, but I have to also say that I wasn't here at that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Scott?
got an answer, yes.
Yes,
John Hilliard, yes.
okay, and Ron?
Ron Wilkinson, yes.
And the chair also votes yes, Paul Yee. So that's 5 yeses, 0 nos, and the motion passes to approve the minutes. Any public comments, Sarah?
We can open public comment. There are at least 3 members of the public in the meeting. We open public comment. You have 3 minutes to speak on anything not on the agenda. Please feel free to raise your hand or otherwise indicate in the chat that you wish to speak. I see no movement.
Thank you. Going down to reports, which is in category 5, item 5, monthly civilian feedback reports, Sarah.
There is no civilian feedback report for this month because there is no civilian feedback.
Thank you.
No feedback has been received since July.
And any review of complaints recently received through the PCAC complaint form.
Yeah, and so in August, there were 2 complaints, and one had to do with I wonder if I should just share my screen, just kind of show. I have redacted versions of their reports to the chief.
I can share my screen, Ron, if you'd like.
Yeah. Okay. Please do that. Okay, so there's the one dated August, and it had to do with this was basically one of those a complaint about how does one enforce interactions between bicycles and vehicles in Brookline, and the complainant felt that the officer was not doing an adequate job of enforcing the rights of bicyclists, and so there was a conversation between the 2 people, and basically with I would say with a bit of mediation, the report was kind of filed. This is in my I'll say, even in my opinion, it's less about a complaint. It's more about general awareness in Brookline about how to deal with bicycle lane, motor vehicle interactions. We've seen other things like this kind of come up, and I'll just kind of mention that as kind of so. So that was the August 21st complaint. Then there's a kind of a double one, August 25th and 25th and September 5th, in which a particular individual filed a written complaint, two written complaints, but they're both related to town hall, saying that he had reported some reported some thefts to the police department and didn't feel that the police department took him seriously. That went to the internal affairs officer. It turns out that this particular individual has a history of over quite a few years of mental health concerns, and that factored into this. And so that was from the point of view of the internal affairs officer. It was a Class D complaint, which is kind of, I don't know if you would call it frivolous, but just kind of one that it was going to be acted on. But I believe the individual was referred to social work. And when I saw this, I asked the chief what procedures exist for deciding whether something like this should go to social work, or one makes those decisions. And so I've invited the chief and the deputy superintendent to kind of comment on that kind of a situation, which seems like it's a very delicate situation. And I wonder if there were any written policies and what the policies are and how those things are decided. So at this particular point, I would like, is the chief, I don't know if the chief is still, to Jen and to Chief Pastor and Deputy Superintendent Campbell to kind of comment on this particular kind of a situation.
You have a dream team here in that you have the deputy superintendent who used to be in charge of the Office of Professional Responsibility and a newly licensed clinical social worker. Annabelle, I know you had asked her to present. However, given that she is working directly with this client, I appreciated her sharing her concerns that she didn't want to inadvertently give any information that was privileged. And so the two of us offered to field questions related to this. I think one issue here, and I'm glad we are talking about it, I think the write-up, the summary that Lieutenant Richards gave might be a little bit misleading, and the classification, where he listed it as a Class D complaint, it falls under frivolous, but that's not because of the complainant. It's because his complaint to town hall was that the officers didn't take a report when in fact they had taken a report, and that was easy to find in the report writing system. And so I think, to your point, we don't have a policy that specifically states how we, treat complaints that come in for individuals with mental health needs, because we treat them just like we would treat anybody else. We hear their concerns, we do take them seriously, and we investigate each one. And in this particular case, every time, to the point, we do take a report every time, or we document the interaction every time a member of the public is going to report something stolen, for example. Sometimes it'll be a case number, a report where the crime is logged. And sometimes it just gets an event number, which indicates that we were there, we had a conversation, but at that time, no crime occurred for reasons that can be obvious, to the officer on scene, but we document that we were there and what services were offered. And this gentleman, our department social workers interact with him. The senior center does as well. And so he's somebody that's on our radar. He was just frustrated. And the situation is delicate, I think is the word that you used, but it's also not entirely uncommon where we have people, it's sort of a common delusion where people can feel like someone's broken into their apartment. We get a lot of calls for someone was in my apartment, nothing's missing, but they moved my stuff. Or somebody was in my apartment, they stole everything, but they replaced it with exact replicas. Like these are feelings that people have. I think our officers are trained pretty well to be sensitive to those. But taking a crime report every time an incident like this comes up would inflate our numbers to, the point that would have people not feeling comfortable living in town, and they're not solvable crimes because they're not crimes. So the frivolous, the filing of it as frivolous is only because they're actually, his complaint was that a report was not filed, but in fact a report was filed.
Okay, I have a question about that because when I think I saw the the actual text of the written complaint. And I think it actually said, he said that they didn't give me a copy of the report, which sort of implied that they may not have filed the report. But I wonder. So I hear that the report was filed, but was he is he entitled to get a copy of the report, and was he given a copy of the report?
So that I don't know for sure. There's no reason he wouldn't be entitled to a copy of his report. When you're the victim of a crime, you can absolutely get a copy of your report. I don't have enough information right now, but if he didn't, he could get one, would get one to him tomorrow. I can check in with records to see if he got one. But yeah, there's no reason that he wouldn't.
Yeah, okay. That was just one point of clarification I wanted. Okay. So congratulations on becoming a licensed social worker. It's great to have a police chief who's also a licensed social worker. Yeah, so yeah, very much. I very much appreciate the fact that you've gone to the trouble of getting that certification. So
Thank you.
yeah.
All
Not
right.
to diminish you, Superintendent Campbell. I think you've been you've been a stalwart with us for years, and I appreciate that too.
Well, he's an attorney, so we all have our lanes, and
Yeah.
that's why I think we make a good team.
Any questions or comments from any of the other members?
No.
Okay,
I have a quick comment on the first
sure.
issue. Like, I think last meeting, the topic of bike lanes and sort of tension related to people parking in bike lanes came up. And just, I thought it might be worth sharing. I had emailed records, I think after the last meeting, just to clarify some questions that came up last time. One of which was like, okay, if somebody blocks a bike lane, how is it cited? I got a reply from Amanda Williams that it's cited as a code 40 for parking on bike lanes. I asked how much, how much does that cost, or like, what's the fine? And it's $50. And then I asked, how often are we citing this particular code 40 bike lane violation? And she said there were 1,373 citations issued from code 40 between January 2023 and August 5th, 2025. So roughly almost 1,000 days. So we're issuing, a little over one of these blocking bike lane tickets per day. So I don't know if we should do more with the sort of theme bike lane tension stuff, but just wanted to share that.
The quantitative data might be useful for the annual report too. Satisfy people who say we're not doing, or we're doing too much of it. Like,
yeah, my reaction was that it's a lot of tickets for blocking bike lanes. So it's like it is, clearly like there's a risk of blocking a bike lane. So that was my impression, but just wanted to share.
Anything else?
No, I'm wondering, is that posted anywhere with the bike lanes? Like if you park here, I don't know what the signage is with that. I don't recall seeing anything, but
Yeah.
I would be curious, the bus lanes are the bus lanes, so you figure that out, but I just wonder if you park here, be fined or something. I don't see that.
yeah, I mean, and maybe not necessarily every bike lane, but if there are hot spots, it might be another area to drill down into the data. Is there a place that we're persistently ticketing people, and is it something that we can put a sign there that says, just so we ticket for bike lanes in Brookline, it's $50, whatever. That would be a deterrent at least.
I think one of the issues with the bike lanes is that oftentimes we think of parking, when it's with a bike lane, it's a little bit different. Oftentimes it's live parking, letting someone out, letting someone in. And I think sometimes officers are less likely to issue a citation with someone who's live parking. Typically, we give the person the opportunity to move along. So it addresses the violation, but it doesn't issue a fine. And I guess there's kind of the pros and cons of that, being a little bit more compassionate to the person who stopped and not finding them, and yet, is it maybe a little bit less forceful of a reminder that, don't do this. That's something that the officers weigh and balance every day with every traffic stop, every parking violation.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're gonna go to the next topic, which is topics of interest by the PCAC members. I'm just gonna call on people that are here at the meeting. The biannual assessment of complaint procedures, right?
Hello, could you please share your screen, Sarah?
One second, let me find it. Give me a
Yeah,
minute.
okay.
5D2. There we go.
I can do it if
No, I got it.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. So this has been a kind of a long drawn out thing. Please go to the next screen background. Okay. So the PCAC chart says that we should give the select board every 2 years an assessment of how well civilian complaints are handled by the police department. And it turns out that due to the combination of turnover and limited bandwidth by members of the PCAC, we're all volunteers, we are behind in delivering an assessment that covers the years 2023 and 2024. Next slide, please. Okay, so I pretty much committed to doing the 2023-2024 assessment this year, and I got started on that. I reviewed the civilian complaint sections of the police department's mid-year and end-year reports for those years. I also reviewed redacted versions of the civilian complaint reports that the internal affairs officer gives to the police chief every time there's a civilian complaint. And I felt that I was losing some I'll call it nuance in the redacted reports, and so I requested to see the unredacted reports to get a better idea of content. Next slide, please. Okay, so because the unredacted documents were considered to be privacy risk if they got out of police headquarters, I got permission to go and view them in police headquarters, actually in the office of the Internal Affairs Office. And they just kind of laid out the documents before me, and I was able to look through them pretty much at my own pace. And so I looked at all the complaint reports for 2023, 2024, and that's the final report and also supporting documents. And it was over 2 long sessions at police headquarters. They were some months apart because I have my day job, and I was only able to get some time to look at it. But I did go through all the reports for the 2 years. Last time was in July of this year. But I've only been able to do a light evaluation of the notes that I took. Quite frankly, I had major surgery in August, which I'm still recovering from, right knee replacement surgery, and I'm also working full time still. And I just found that I didn't have a bandwidth. I haven't had enough bandwidth to do a really thorough write-up. So all I can give you today is some very preliminary, informal kind of bullet point assessments. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So there's an average of about 10 civilian complaints a year. They come in through multiple channels, usually often online through either the police department's website or the PCAC's website. They can be written complaints turned in at the select board office, or a written complaint given in person at police headquarters. And the kinds of complaint categories we've seen are rudeness, complaints of rudeness on the parts of police department employees, whether sworn officers or other employees like front desk people or ticket officers. Inappropriate complaints saying that you can read it out. Inappropriate reprimanding of reprimanding civilian for what the civilian felt was innocuous behavior. So that's the kind of a thing where somebody stops people, runs into Starbucks to get a coffee that they ordered. They come out and they're being ticketed, and the person who ran into Starbucks say, "Why are you ticketing for?" "I just ran in to get a coffee." And the person who's sitting ticket says, "Look, you're in a major intersection. You're parked in you're blocking traffic. This is serious." And so you get that kind of disagreement coming up, that kind of a thing. Notably, failure to enforce bicycle car interaction laws, which we've talked about already today. And another interesting one theme had been a complainant saying that there was a complaint between two civilians and just parties, and the complainant saying that the police officer took the other party's side in the dispute. What's been interesting there, looking through a really egregious case like that, was when there was body camera footage and other kinds of things, and everybody was brought in, and basically the officers were going out of their way to be very, very, very fair about it, but each the party to the dispute felt very strongly that their own time was right. It was just interesting. It was mostly settled through mediation, but whatever, that kind of thing comes up. Okay, so and we haven't seen any. I haven't seen any really serious things like serious police misconduct, like committing a crime or a felony, anything like that. I mean, this tends to be a pretty peaceful town as far as the police have gone, from at least as far as complaints filed by civilians. That's what I've seen over these couple of years. So I found that the internal affairs officer, there have been 3 over 3 years, while reporting to Chief Pastor. There was Chuck Thornton, Deputy Superintendent Campbell, and Ray Richards over the past 3 years. And as far as I can tell, they've been very conscientious about following up on civilian complaints within 2 days of receiving them, as mandated by policy, and then sending the investigative reports to the chief in a timely manner when the investigations are complete. So I felt good about the conscientious. It didn't look like anything was being kind of thrown under the rug or left to languish inappropriately. So I felt good about that. Next slide, please. Okay, and the internal affairs officer has, as mandated, they interview the complainant and get any other and have the option of talking to any other identified witnesses that the complainant specifies. They interview the internal affairs officer, and the internal affairs officer may seek additional sources of information like body camera footage or just video footage from cameras that happen to be in the area where the incident where an incident occurred. And the IAO is typically sought to bring the complainant and any police department personnel named in the complaint together to this. The IAO makes a kind of an initial kind of a finding, but he also brings the complainant and the BPD personnel in to essentially talk about it, to discuss the findings. They can object, they can agree. Usually it looks like in the vast majority of cases it's been settled. And I say vast majority of cases, there haven't been that many cases a year, but it looks like things seem to be going relatively smoothly. I'll call out, in cases of alleged rudeness or overreaction, the most common outcome has been successful mediation, where the complainant and the BPD understand each other's perspectives, because they have to sit down and talk about how the situation looked from each other's perspective. And it's also very helpful if there is video evidence, because you've got a kind of objective third party out there to see it. So in those 2 years, I saw exactly one case in which there was a pattern of inappropriate rudeness, happened to be by a parking control officer, and that was sustained. It was over more than one civilian complaint. The circumstances were sustained, and that PCO was disciplined. And that's what I have to say so far about reviewing those 2 years. I would like to say a lot more things in depth, but I haven't had time to do that yet.
Any comments, questions?
Yeah, Ron, just as a suggestion, the work you're doing sounds great, and I think it's nice to see. I was talking about auditing before in the previous one, right? This is exactly the sort of thing. Not that anything, because we get assurance that we're doing well, we're responding to complaints in a reasonable fashion. The purpose of the audit isn't to find bad things happening; it's to reassure ourselves that we're doing well. The one anecdotally that the thing that's come up a number of times in that time frame, I believe, and you've got the data better than I, is that there were a number of complaints that we weren't able to follow up on because we didn't have contact information for the complainant.
Yeah, that does come up.
And so-
And is that the only thing I can think of that we could do about that is publicize either on the complaint form or in other ways that the more information we have, the better we can follow up on specific complaints. If you have suggestions about how that could be handled better, I would appreciate that. It is true that when I get to write up more about this stuff, I could even put in a statistic about how many things were impossible to follow up because there wasn't enough information.
Yeah, I think that was my concrete suggestion, is maybe include that in your overview. I think in terms of like concretely addressing it, we're going to do that in a moment when we talk about the form for complaints, right? Because so I don't know that in your report you need to suggest a solution, just sort of anecdotally that this is something that seems to come up in your review of those cases.
Okay.
Anything else? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Ron.
Thank you.
Scott, you want to talk about police data systems?
Yes, especially because everyone who's needed to resolve this is here. So I got a follow-up from David Hill, who was offering to put together a brief presentation originally for the September meeting, but there were conflicts. So they're concretely proposing to present to us on the 27th of October. And this is a survey of the Larimore system and how they use it, mostly so that the committee members get the benefit of a great presentation that Paul, you and I think were at. Yeah.
I was there too.
Yeah. Right. I was trying to remember which co-chair it was, and the answer was both of them. So I couldn't, this is up to the chairs to see whether they think the 27th is an appropriate time for that. And I think he had a question for you, Chief Pastor. Where was it? There was an open question about overtime for the presenters for attending that meeting, which is again something that's above my pay grade. But like I said, everyone who needs is here.
Can you please let him know that you have all been so gracious as to offer to come in during his scheduled work time, and he will appreciate that response.
But then, so that's the question is the 1027 has been proposed for that presentation.
Yeah.
That sound good?
Good,
That's
right?
fine. Yeah, fine.
Okay.
That sounds good.
So I'll write him back and
Yeah.
we'll talk about that next minute.
We'll put it on the agenda. Okay,
Great.
great. We'll get an update about ICE and Brookline Deputy Superintendent Campbell. Any activity?
So I can give an update. Since our last meeting, I'm aware of 2 instances where ICE was present in Brookline. The first one was in August. It was not at the police station. It was at the courthouse. There was a person who had been arrested by the Boston Police Department. It was on a Brookline warrant, so they were transferred to the Brookline courthouse the following day. The warrant was for domestic violence, extortion, and threats. ICE came to the courthouse. However, the defendant was held without bail, and for that reason, he remained in the custody of the county. So ICE did not take custody, at least at that time. I have no idea what has happened since. That
You
was
said transferred to, I was taking notes and I lost it there. He was arrested on a Brookline warrant, transferred to.
so it's a Brookline warrant. So he was arrested in Boston. So what happens is Boston holds him in custody until the next day. The next day, they're then transferred to Brookline court to answer for the Brookline warrant.
Yeah.
ICE was waiting at the Brookline court. However, he was held on the charges. He was not released on bail. And so he then is transferred. He's held in custody of the county, probably Dedham House of Correction, but I don't know that for certain. And I don't have any idea if he's still in custody, if he's been released, or what his status is. Anyway, that was mid-August. There was one just last week where we had a suspect taken into custody by ICE. And this happened after he was released from our custody. So we had a subject arrested on the day shift. He came in at about 12:30 in the afternoon. There were some serious charges. I'll just let you know what the charges were. 2 counts of assault and battery on a pregnant woman, 2 counts of strangulation and suffocation, 1 count of intimidation of a witness, 3 counts of domestic assault and battery, and 2 counts of threats. He was booked in our system. After he was booked, we received a detainer from ICE. The prisoner was notified of the detainer, but we took no action on it. ICE came to the station in the afternoon, and but the prisoner had not been released, and ICE left. But apparently they went and they just waited outside all day. The prisoner was released just before midnight that day. He was released on bail, and upon being released on bail, he walked out the front door, and ICE went and made an arrest at that time. He was taken into custody without incident. It appears as though ICE, I don't know this for certain, but it appears as though they just went and waited outside all day for him. Those are the 2 ICE instances of ICE being in Brookline since our last meeting, at least that I am aware of.
How much was the bail that he made?
$7,500.
Is that all?
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, he was notified. Yeah. No way.
So we're gonna move to the next topic, which is the impact of the criminal bar advocate work stoppage on the police department and also for the town of Brookline.
So I don't have much on this one. I can only tell you that it's still going on. The impact on the police department is at this point relatively minor. We may have had a court date here or there that gets canceled or postponed, and that could result in some overtime charges that otherwise wouldn't be incurred by the department. But big picture, it's relatively minor. The impact is greater on the court system in the counties because they're dealing with holding prisoners, and the courts are dealing with scheduling issues and schedules being backed up because their cases are not being resolved in a timely fashion. But from police operations standpoint, at least as of now, relatively low impact. Yeah, not a whole lot more on that.
So are any of the officers or victims of crime reporting any cases been dismissed by the court because of that?
I don't have any hard data on that. I believe there are some cases that have been dismissed. I don't think felony cases, but I can't say for sure exactly what has been dismissed and what hasn't. I think where the cases are more serious, the courts are trying to continue them. There are some attorneys that are coming back and taking on representation again, which is something I was informed of today. But it's still a problem, and they still don't have enough defense attorneys to represent all the cases that are coming through the courts.
Thank you. Would the members of the PCAC mind if I let Marty Rosenthal chime in here?
Okay.
No problem? Okay.
Marty, I will make you a co-host and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay,
Marty,
Feel
you
free to
still,
unmute yourself and begin.
I think
you
I
still with
did.
CPCS?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I did, I think.
We can hear you.
Okay. All right, so very quickly, and I have to say, I'm very happy to be here. I haven't been here for a long time, and some of you may remember that I think this committee was really my first idea on the Police Reform Committee. Michael Zurob, who's long gone, would remember that, and I don't even know if Paul and Ron were on the committee and would remember that this was my idea. But anyway, I'm very proud of what you're doing and proud to be here. This issue is really a gigantic issue. It's bigger in Suffolk and Middlesex, and I'm actually involved a little with these people, the lawyers. Although I don't do court-appointed work for a long time. I did it for 20 years as a full-time defender, and then when I left a teaching job, I did it for a while to start with private practice, but I haven't done it for a long time. But the real problem of all this is that the pay rate doesn't cover your overhead. And the state legislature just passed a little bit of an addition, which is not enough. And the numbers are pretty simple. The bar advocates in district court got $65 an hour for a long time, which is miserable. And the state legislature just increased it $10 this year and $10 next year to make it 85 an hour after 2 years. But the bar advocates have been asking for $100 an hour, which is less than every other New England state. So the real problem here is that it diminishes the quality of the representation because the experienced lawyers don't stay in district court. A few do, and some of them are good and some of them are weak. But the problem is that even at $85 an hour, you're going to lose experienced people, and they can make more money on the Superior Court list if they get screened into it and qualified, or the murder list is even more. So the question I have is whether or not I didn't know
30
this was gonna,
seconds.
yeah, I didn't know this was going to be on the agenda, and it's what caught my eye, and I appreciate Superintendent Campbell's report. The question is, would this committee, if I sent you something for your next meeting, a statement that Brookline PACS issued in support of the $100 rate, would this committee consider discussing supporting that at the next meeting? That's my question, and you don't have to answer it now. I don't know if you want to even discuss it now.
We don't want to discuss it now.
I had a feeling.
Thank you, Marty.
Thanks.
Just for my own information, is this, other than town issuing a support, a letter of support or something like this, this comes out of the state budget? Yes, it's not something that Brookline could lateral thing. So the limit of our, just clarifying the terms, the limit of our ability to do anything about it would be to sign a letter of support or something like that. Yes.
So is it still persisting with the attorneys? Are they still having a work stoppage?
Yes.
Still going on?
I mean, I think Deputy Superintendent Campbell, I think if we were to discuss this next meeting, I think having those numbers about what we're seeing locally for our town, if there are cases being dismissed, or how often this has impacted our local Norfolk County cases would probably be helpful.
Yeah, I could certainly try to get that. The problem would be, I don't know if it's being tracked. So I don't know how precise or accurate the data would be. Some of it might be anecdotal, just, yeah, we're dismissing a few cases a week or something like that. But it would be simple enough for me to inquire.
About a month ago, a bunch of retired judges got together and sent in a letter of support. I was one of the signatories. So I don't blame any of the state bar advocates. I did the same thing myself. I stopped state bar advocate. And I just went over to the federal system and doing criminal justice act work, which is basically the same criminal defense, but in the on the federal side, and it's 175 an hour. That's the federal government. It's 175 an hour. That's right here in Boston. So it's really a shame what's happening. Okay. Discussion on the new Google form. Sarah?
1 second. Let me find it. Hold on. Share.
So just
Okay.
to update.
So I
Yeah.
made edits based on what was sent to me, and Ron also sent me a list of how he would have liked it written out. I also spoke with my boss, Lloyd Gelanu, about his suggestions related to the expansion of race and ethnic categories. And he suggested that the PCAC put out a survey to the community on whether or not we want that kind of data, because there's really nowhere else the town is collecting that kind of nuanced racial and ethnic data. And so he suggested that we continue to use the current categories as defined by the Office of Management and Budget and the EEO, which I will show at the end of there at the bottom of the form. I explained what the form is doing, which was the first thing that you asked. Police Commissioners Advisory Committee created this form to gather feedback from the public on their interactions, whether positive, neutral, or negative with the Brookline Police Department. There's also 2 other ways to submit a complaint, and that those links are active once the form goes live. And one would lead them to the citizens complaint form, which is the copy of the form that comes to my email, and then I forward to the chair of the committee. And then the other form is the form that does not come to my inbox, that goes directly to the VPD. The PCA reviews this form meaning the civilian feedback form monthly. You can observe the discussion of your submission at the next meeting, and that links to a list of when the commission's meetings or the committee's meetings are, either on Zoom or in person at Town Hall Room 111. If we were to change the room, I could update that information pretty easily. But I do my best to make sure that you're always meeting in this room. Date of interaction, approximately what time of day did this interaction happen, and then describe what happened and how you felt about it. Please be as specific as possible. Without detailed information, the PCAC has limited ability to follow up on any complaint provided. And then overall, how would you rate the interaction with the Brookline Police? You can pick one of the following. And these are the categories you currently use. They're exactly the same in exactly the same order. Very positive, somewhat positive, neutral, somewhat negative, very negative. Would you like to identify the personnel involved? You can mark yes or no. And then you can optionally identify so if you say yes, then you would need to fill out number 6. You can optionally identify the police personnel involved here. It is fine if you only know the first name, last name, or badge number. It still helps us identify the personnel involved. Without identifying information, the PCAC has limited ability to follow up on any complaint provided. Would you like to identify yourself? Yes or no? And then you can give us your information, email address, phone number, or any other information about yourself or the incident you feel would be helpful. And then we ask demographic questions, all of which are optional. So all of the questions in this section, in the section before demographics, are not optional, except for you can optionally give us your name and you can optionally identify the personnel involved. All the questions you must fill out in order for this form to submit. Then you can either skip or any or all of these questions. You fill out age group. We broke it down by under 18, 18 to 29, and then 10 years. This is different from the current form. We use a slightly different breakdown, but when I spoke with the chairs, this is the way they wanted to go. Or you can prefer not to answer. How would you describe your gender? You can mark one oval here, male, female, transgender, non-binary, prefer not to answer. How would you describe your sexual orientation? They are described here. You can prefer not to answer. How would you describe your race or ethnicity? You can check all that apply. So you can check more than one. And that's the difference in Google Forms. An oval is you can pick one. A checkbox is you can pick more than one. And these are the current racial and ethnic descriptions from Office of Management and Budget, Andy EEO, American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Black or African American, Hispanic or Latino, Middle East or North African, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, white, some other race, or prefer not to answer. What is your relationship to Brookline? Check all that apply. Live in Brookline, work in Brookline, study in Brookline, visitor to Brookline, prefer not to answer. And then there would be a submit button. There is currently not one because this is a draft of the form. You would submit the form, but you would not get a copy of the form because if you did that, you would have to give me your email address, which we would record, and we want to make sure that this form is as accessible as possible if people don't want to give me their email address. So if you decide you want to use this form, I would need a vote, and then I can make it live and I can turn the other form off.
Any comments, questions? Sarah?
I do, but I also think this is much better than what we had. So I don't want them to necessarily block the thing. Identifying information for the officer, the thing that you could add is the exact time and place of the incident, right? Like we don't necessarily need the name or badge number if we know exactly where and when it was, because we know who was on duty at that time. Right.
Wouldn't that be captured in the initial complaint? Where
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I'm more worried about the tone of this is like, we can't do anything about it unless you provide this information. I want to sort of reassure them that if they don't, that it's still worth submitting the form, even if they don't remember a name or badge number. If they give us some information about time and place, that's good enough. And the other suggestion I was going to make was just because the demographic questions could seem invasive, that we include a sentence explaining why we're collecting this, that we are collecting this information to determine if there are patterns of discrimination, basically. And that I think might make people more willing to provide some of that demographic information. I had two other minor issues. One is if we're not going to give them a copy of the form, we could explicitly say that at the bottom. You won't receive a copy of this form. Please print it out if you want to save your answers for your own records or whatever. I mean, you won't receive a copy. Please print it out. And I think there are also two other ways to submit a complaint. It was
it's already there.
It's right in the top section, Scott.
No, I'm just saying the word, it says there is, we changed the word is to are. I said these were minor. I want to
We are, so exact time and place of the incident, where would you like me to put that?
Sorry, can you bring it up again? It's like, you've got it in front of you, sorry. Everyone's got it in front of them except for me.
At the top of the form, it said date and time of the incident. You could maybe add location.
Yeah, no, but I wanted specifically where we say we can't do anything about it without identifying. You can actually identify the police personnel here, and the final sentence is without identifying information, the PCAC has limited ability to follow up on a complaint. So I wanted it somewhere in that section so that they know that it is fine if you only, I would say, it is fine if you only know a first name, last name, badge number, or the exact time and place. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I can make that edit.
And then just below that demographic information, all questions are optional. I would just add a sentence that says, we collect this information to determine if there are patterns of discrimination.
You're collecting this data to determine if there are patterns of discrimination.
You would just see discrimination on the age, wouldn't you?
I mean, yeah, like all of it, I think.
You're not asking any ethnicity questions, so
Yeah, I
how
mean,
you would interpret that discrimination.
oh, there's age discrimination. There's, yeah, like all of these questions are somewhat sensitive, I think, right? Yeah, that's all I had to say.
Any more comments, questions?
I have one question. I don't remember if it was this form, but I remember on one of the forms, there was actually a checkbox where the person would click that they have reviewed the citizen complaint or civilian complaint policies and procedures, or that they had read.
That was not on this form.
That was a different one?
And yeah, that's not on this form anyway.
Okay.
Do you want to suggest that? Is that what you're saying?
We have a number of these forms now, and it's difficult for me to keep straight which one is
Okay.
which one is which. But I just want to, because for the internal affairs officer, when he gets some of these, one of the things, if he's doing a report that he's supposed to be able to identify is that they received a copy of the policy. This might be something a little bit different, though.
Yeah, because remember that this form isn't just used for complaints. So, I mean, actually, majority of the responses we get are positive or neutral.
It's a feedback basically.
Yeah, it's a feedback form as opposed to a complaint form.
Right.
This is a big improvement. I like it.
Okay.
So I can definitely make those changes as suggested. Would you like me to once I make those changes, to make this form live?
Yeah, do we have to vote on that?
I would suggest you do so.
I just would like to emphasize that this is part of the suggestion, but I just very much like the idea of saying that we won't send you a copy of the form because we don't have your email address. So if you would like a copy, we encourage you to print it from your browser, just so that people have an option of again making a copy for themselves.
Yeah. Ideally, before they hit submit and it appears for everyone.
Yeah.
If you would like a copy of the form, we suggest that you print it yourself.
Yeah. Usually you can do a Control P or something like that. I mean, browser.
Since it's late, can I make a motion to approve this version of the form with the corrections we discussed?
Right. Anybody, that's Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christine,
And
second.
Christine is seconding? Okay. Any more comments or questions? No? I'll go to you first.
John Billy, votes aye.
Yep.
Scott Nanny votes aye.
And Christine, please.
Pardon me?
Voting on the motion.
On the motion, yeah. Second, whatever, yeah.
Second, okay. And Ron?
It's a disaster.
I vote aye.
And Chair Paul votes yes, aye. So it's 5 and motion carries to approve the form with the suggested amendments.
All right, I'll do that tomorrow, and then I can also let Tiffany know that we will shut down the other form and make this one live.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
Any discussion of future topics or agenda?
Like I do every month, I'll just request another ICE update next month. And we talked about doing the Larimore presentation next month.
Right, and also, do people want to discuss that support letter for bar advocates or not?
I'd be willing to do it.
The support letter for what?
Bar advocate. the state bar.
Sure.
Do you,
What was that?
do you wanna discuss? Right, supporting, forwarding a letter in support of a bigger raise for the state bar advocates.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we'll
And-
just have a discussion. We're not saying we're gonna do it yet, okay?
Yeah, and certainly with the information from Deputy Superintendent Campbell.
Yeah. Okay, the other natural topic I think would be the follow-on of so if the MOU gets signed, what's the concurrent progress on
Okay,
that? So see.
okay. Oh, yeah, all right.
I feel busy.
So anything else?
I just want to confirm that the next, hold on, let me look at the agenda. The next meeting is October 27th, and then the last meeting of this year is December 8th. In the December 8th meeting, I would like to discuss dates for the first 6 months of 2026.
Sure. If there's no new business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Anybody?
I move to adjourn.
Christine, seconds? Yes,
Yes.
any discussion? Okay, Christine, vote to adjourn, yes?
Yes.
Scott Mannion, yes.
John Hilliard, yes.
Ron, please.
Scott, quick question.
Yes.
The chair votes yes.
My printer's
No
not.
adjourn.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for sticking with us, Chief and Deputy Superintendent.
And I was on
yeah.
like for an hour and a half